Welcome, everybody. I'm Doug Thies. I'm the Director of National Strategy for Expedient, and I run IT Leaders. We've got IT Leaders now in Indy, 7 years. We have it in Louisville. We're a year old down there and had great success. And we're going to give Fort Wayne a whirl in October. So if any of you can make that, we'd love to have you, and spread the word if you know anybody who's in Anderson or Muncie or anywhere close to Fort Wayne. We want to drive attendance to see if we might do the thing permanently in 2024. We've also got some interest in some of our other markets. Milwaukee and Little Rock, Arkansas are interested, and Phoenix is, so time will tell. We also are exploring a more rigorous curriculum for leadership through a company called Willett & Associates. If you've ever listened to the CIO Whisperer podcast, the guy who runs that, his name's Dan Roberts, and his company puts together one of the best 9-month curriculums I've ever seen in IT leadership. So we use it in Pittsburgh at our Pittsburgh IT leaders, and we're considering bringing it to Indy and some of the other markets. Lou Russell is retiring, our longtime boot camp. She's got grandkids now, and I think they're far more interesting than we IT people. But we're investigating what happens there. Who are we and why are we here? Who are you? Who are you? When people ask me that, I say I'm a lifelong learner and I've got a bad case of FOMO. I'm not a sales rep, I'm not a marketer, I'm not a technologist. I think of myself as something apart from my career. It took me 40 years to figure that out, frankly. I intertwined my personal life with my work life far too much, I think, as a younger man. So who are you? Mike, who are you?
I am a IT leader that is curious about learning and growing and helping others.
Ooh, I love curious. I think if you're not curious in IT, you're probably in the wrong profession. I really like that. Who else? Adam?
That's a good one. Go on. I would say I am definitely curious.
Yeah, good.
I look to invest in people, and I'm trying to figure out how to not make mistakes of prior managers, and also learn from those mistakes to make sure I don't do them, or they weren't all bad either, right? Because they taught me something, and they made me who I am. So.
Caring about your people is a big deal in the work that we do. Alex, what about you?
Me? I'm a mom, I'm a minivan driver, and I'm super passionate about growing people.
Growing people, I love that. I like minivan driver too. I think that's...
It's out there, it's scary.
Yeah, it's good. Ask yourself, who are you? And why are you showing up to this meeting? As you all know, most of you have been here before, we're really focused on breakfast and networking and mentorship, and most importantly, leadership skills. Nobody ever gets trained. We're all victims of the Peter Principle, typically. The promoted to some position of incompetence as a leader, right? You're a fabulous technologist. We're going to change all that. We're going to promote you. So that's why we're here, is to try to develop those leadership skills. Bathrooms over here. And if you need to leave early, text me. My text number is up on the board there. Or you can actually go to the door and press the call button, and the front desk analyst can let you out from there. I've got a couple of people who are in the office. The folks who walked you back can let you out if you need to leave before 10 o'clock. To keep track of what's going on here in this meeting, itleaders.org/Indianapolis. The other events are in itleaders.org too, as you can probably figure out from the pattern. It's / in whatever city you are. Fort Wayne's called NE Indiana, Northeast Indiana. So if you're interested in looking into that a little bit further, you can also navigate the website. We do a LinkedIn company page. I typically use that just to amplify what's coming up next in the events. It's called IT Leaders Indianapolis, and we have a LinkedIn group that I'll talk about in a little bit. We don't do much with Indianapolis IT, the Twitter or X handle right now. Will we? Probably not. If you like what you see here, take a few pictures. Take some pictures of the speaker and please send them to me. I don't always get the shots that are most flattering to our speakers. I think they like seeing themselves on LinkedIn. And post these using this hashtag, ITLeadersIndy, so other people can see this and hear about it. We got a nice group today. We've got about 40 people, so super cool. We've got a private group on LinkedIn that's really focused on you communicating with each other. Doesn't get used a lot, but I'd encourage you to still consider logging in. The icon for the group IT Leaders Indianapolis is a red icon versus the icon for the IT Leaders company page, which looks like this icon here. So that's how you can tell the difference easily. You apply, you ask to become a member. I approve you if you're not a sales rep, and you can use it from there on. Okay, we have a mentorship program. We've got about a dozen CIOs who have committed to supporting mentor or mentees. They are acting as mentors. It's a self-service program. If you're interested, contact me. I'll send you the one-page instruction sheet. You get your hallucination of a career path written down, and you update your LinkedIn profile and reach out to those people on LinkedIn. So you agree to date for 3 dates, and if there's chemistry, you can move forward. If not, you can find another mentor, but I would really encourage you to consider mentorship. If not through this program, then on your own. This is your part of the meeting. Who is currently looking for their next role in IT? Shay? Talk about yourself and what you're looking for.
Well, my name is Shay Lyman. I was until recently VP of Infrastructure and Operations at Byrider Company here in Carmel. I was riffed roughly 3 weeks ago. 20 plus years of IT leadership, mostly on the infrastructure side, focused on transformations. I was, prior to Expedient and Frame's first customer in this building when I was with Monster.com. So looking for something to lead in the Indianapolis market, executive IT lead.
Thank you, Shay. Steve?
I'm Steve Sheridan. I'm also in the infrastructure realm. I've been doing IT leadership for 10 plus years. What I'm really looking for today is a connection to SMC. I know that they have an opening there, and I'd love to get connected with the hiring manager there if anybody knows anybody.
If you know any IT people at SMC or hiring managers, get with Steve after the meeting. Who else is looking? Dwayne.
My name's Dwayne. I'm currently working for HVAS with Indiana, but my request is not for me. It's for, I do an internship for veterans that come through and are at an entry level, like A+, Net Plus, Security Plus, CCNA type stuff, and they're always looking for positions. They're shooting for like $18 an hour. You guys can work that out. But the veterans that I have come through like a 10-week program with us directly, and we teach them cloud management, teach them physical layer stuff, networking using Cisco Meraki, Ubiquity products, and Microsoft Cloud Azure products. So if you have any roles that would fill that out, I can give you my card after this, and we can link you guys up together.
The work that HVAF does is really amazing. I would encourage you to consider that over time. Is it Kyle?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Kyle Kleemek. I grew up in the industry as a developer and architect, then transitioned into leadership in 2014. Ran an app dev consultancy from about $5.5 million to just under 30 million, which was about 30% compound annual growth rate over 6-7 years. Then led the division, used to be a Legion, was our digital transformation division here in Indianapolis for DMI. Ran that for about a year, and then we reorged, and I ran all of our private sector consulting services, about 150 million in revenue. So looking for professional services, leadership, CIO, CTO, chief digital officer, similar roles.
Thank you. Anyone else? Brandon?
Sure, so I'm Brandon McGann. I actually worked for Kyle until recently. I was the managing director of our platform services group, which is primarily over our Microsoft 365 and Salesforce offerings. Looking to stay in professional services as a director level or practice type leader in that space. Also have a background in corporate IT, so would be interested in checking out opportunities in that space as well. Similar to Kyle, had a portion of people that were rolled up to me about 120 in its height, 30 million in annual revenue, and yeah, just looking for any opportunities that anyone might have.
Thank you. Anyone else?
John Mullendorf.
Hi, John.
Also worked for Kyle.
All right, yeah, there's no matter.
I was managing director of an application development team.
Okay.
Have a passion and a track record for building really high performance teams, both from a radical customer centricity side of really seeking to solve clients' issues, whether that be internal or consulting customers, as well as really instill cultural commitment to quality and engineering excellence. And I'm looking for a leadership opportunity where I can take those skills and help a company build similar cultures and serve their customers.
Thank you. Anyone have open positions in their organization that they know about that they want to talk about? Go ahead.
Hey, Nathan Hiscock, Acela Cloud, and we're hiring a business development rep. So even if you have a technical background, don't let that dissuade you because we're a pretty technical team. So.
All right.
What company was that?
Acela Cloud. Okay.
Spell it.
SELA Cloud.
Okay.
You can look at my LinkedIn profile. And I've worked with those three guys. They're great.
Oh, awesome. Nice. Blake.
Good morning, Blake Abercrombie, Bastion Solutions, 106th and Meridian, so real close locally here. Have a few openings and we'll continue to expand our IT group. The first one is an analytics team lead that will be really rebuilding a more robust and more mature predictive analytics practice for Bastion. And then 2 roles around Dynamics 365. So
I've heard of that.
a mix of technical and customer-facing skills is kind of what I'm looking for on D365.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else?
Bastion Solutions, we're a Toyota subsidiary. Thank you.
Chris.
Yeah, Chris Mertens, Hamilton County, so local government. We don't have positions right this minute, but we got approved just this month for some positions for next fiscal year, which starts in January. We're gonna have, one of the positions is the first ever Chief Information Security Officer.
Wow.
So if you wanna get involved in local government at a security level, we'll have that position. We do have a couple of help desk entry-level positions that are open in our public safety, and we found veterans work really well in the public safety environment. So we would definitely look for applications there.
Yeah.
Radio tech, so public safety radio, we have one of those, and then we have an applications administrator, which was approved as well, which is a little bit higher level, supporting some enterprise applications that we have in the county.
Thanks, Chris. Anybody else? Chris, and Chris?
Hey, I'm Chris Sibla. I'm CIO at Financial Center First Credit Union here in town, and I do have a IT operations manager role open right now. We're trying to fill networking, security, and to help us kind of transition from a lot of on-prem into managed services or cloud-type offerings over time. So that just got posted last week. So if anybody knows there's anything, some of you guys sound like might be fit. So see me later.
Fabulous. Anybody else? Man, I love that. That was a whole lot of people talking. We are hosting the 8th annual Indy CIO Network. If you are the top dog in your IT organization, you're welcome to come to this event. Take a picture, and the link is right there at the bottom of the page. If you were at the Indiana IT Symposium last week, Jim Gehring and I both spoke, and we'll be talking again on this idea of the challenge of legacy, right? I think technical debt is probably a better term than legacy, or what you drag forward kicking and screaming. So, and the food's good. Jonathan Bird's caters just like they do this morning, although it's quite a bit more fancy, and they have beer and wine as well. October 17th is the Fort Wayne event. again, remind people if you know of anybody, and you're all welcome to come up as well. 2 really good speakers. Carmel, Stefan Fluler, the CIO of First Merchants, he is a character. He is a very interesting guy, and he's got a super interesting leadership journey. And one of our old members, Calvin Hendricks Parker with 6 Feet Up, has got a new model that he's going to be talking about called Best. So super excited about having him too. This should be great. November 7th. Anybody know what November 7th is? Election day. So plan appropriately. Vote early or vote late or vote at lunchtime, whatever you need to do, but don't miss this one. This will be great too. And then the final event of the year is November 14th down in Louisville. Jay Messner from Cincinnati is going to be talking about influence. Very important subject. It is hard to build culture without influence. It's hard to lead without influence. Katura Jenkins is amazing. She's going to be talking about intentional leadership. She has been with Humana in a variety of roles, and I just find her extremely engaging. So looking forward to those 2. That's at Yum Brands headquarters on Colonel Sanders Lane. This is an event that for CTOs that Calvin told me about. I'm not sure about the creative nature of the name, 0111, but it's supposed to be really good. The content looks really interesting, so if you're a CTO or in a similar role, it looks quite engaging. And then, of course, Expedient has been the underwriter of this event forever. We're a 20-year-old co-location firm. We've been doing VMware Cloud since 2007. We're one of the biggest in the country. We have a variety of services these days, and we really help people migrate to the cloud and stay there and solve the problems associated with hybrid cloud. So thanks to Expedient. Today's speakers, Mike Peck, talking about the culture code, and Ryan talking about stress management. Mike, let me do the AV work here, and we're ready to go.
Sounds good. I'm going to start with a question. Raise your hand if you have been to Yosemite National Park. I need like right there we go. Those of you that have not been, I ask that you put on your bucket list to go, and then the asterisk is promise me that you will not do a drive-by. When you go to Yosemite, there are lots of people that park their car and they go, and they get back in their car. Don't do that. I found myself there about 10 years ago with my brother and 4 or 5 friends, and we were going on a hike. 20 miles, 10 miles out, 10 miles back. I was in much better shape than I am today. Unbelievably beautiful. We're going through this strand of pine trees, and it opens up onto this swath of granite that is undescribable. I look up to the top of this mountain, and it's all granite. It looked like just a hand went and smoothed this granite down to the valley. It was stunning. So we're walking out in the middle of this area, and we're looking at the blue sky, and I turn around, and I go, I have no idea where the trail is over there. And I look on the other side of this swath of granite that's probably 3 football fields wide, and I say, I don't know where the trail is on the other side of this swath of granite. And by the way, this is 6 miles in. And I see this. This is what's called a cairn, C-A-I-R-N. Its roots go back to the Eskimos to find their way along hunting trails. And essentially, these rocks were left by people before that had come across this. So I see this, and I turn to my left, and I see another one about 20 yards further, and another one. Now all of a sudden, the path across this huge swath is much clearer than it was before. That's what you do every day. There are people in your life that have left rocks that you're still following, and every single day, people that you interact with are following the rocks that you lead and leave. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now let me connect this story with a personal story at our company. This is not about me, By the way, I'm not a technical person. Don't ask me any questions about software. I have very smart software people that work with me. We had 2 interns from Purdue a few years ago that were with us in the summer. And I was having a very informal conversation with them because I really wanted to help them. And I said, let me ask you a question. I'm going to roughly profile 3 different types of people that are in your computer science classes up at Purdue. You tell me whether I'm right. And of course, they do the nonverbal, yeah, let me see this. Old bald guy, let me see you do this. And I said, okay, the first is the kind of person who basically wears all black, never looks at you in the eye, is far more interested in what they're doing in gaming than anything else. They go from class to a computer, and they're very distant, and they nod. I know that guy. And I said, the second is somebody that's really, really smart, and they'll talk to you. But if you ask them a question, the first thing they do is make you feel stupid that you don't know what they know.
Access granted.
They love to show people how smart they are. And they love to make you feel like you don't know what they know. And they nod. I said, yeah, I know that guy too. And I said, now here's the third one. Very similar to the second person. But the difference is that person gets energized when they teach you something. That person is really, really smart. But when they find something that you don't know, the teacher in them comes out. The educator in them comes out. And they're fed by you getting to some place that you couldn't get on your own. Yeah, I know those guys too. I said, who do you think I want to hire? And they got really quiet. I said, I can't hire the first group because I can't put my clients at risk. I can't hire the second group because I don't want to fragment the culture that I have within the organization. I need teachers that are smart. And I said to them, I don't know where you're going to get your next job, but just understand that whoever's going to hire you is going to think about that. That was me leaving a rock for those guys. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What I hope is you're going to leave with a deeper understanding of culture, because I think that culture has one of those general perceptions, and everybody goes, yeah, I know what culture is, but they don't cultivate it. The second thing is, I'm hopefully going to leave you with at least one idea that you can take back and nurture within your organization. All right. The title is Culture Code. The periods are intentional. Think of culture in terms of care. The care that your team members feel. And think of code in terms of signals sent, not ones and zeros. What are the signals that are sent to the team members that you have that allow them to know that they feel part of something special? This talk is inspired by 2 books. Think of it like Cliff Notes. Those of you who are old enough for Cliff Notes. I loved both of these books. So what I did was I took bits and pieces out of them. They're both awesome. In particular, Creativity Incorporated is awesome. And by the way, just as an aside, if you have any interest in Pixar movies, read Creativity Incorporated. I'm fascinated by the number of iterations that they went through on the story of Toy Story before they got to the one that we love. I could talk for an hour on that. So, quick activity. I'm going to give you 3 minutes. What I want you to do is talk at your table and score yourself from 1 to 10. How well do you think your team understands the culture of your organization and the culture of the team that works with you? 1 is, boy, do we have some work to do. And 10 is, everybody gets it completely clearly. So talk amongst yourselves, and then what I would like is a table average, just to see where we all are, okay? I'll give you 3 minutes, maybe 3.5. Good, good conversation, right? Let me get a sense of what table averages we ended up with. In the back, what'd you have as a table average?
I would say 7.
We got a 7. Alex, what'd your table have?
Wait, hold on, they're doing the math, I don't do math. They're
Okay,
doing
all right, Alex, I'll come back to you. 7?
3.8.
Okay, good. We have lots of 7s.
About 6.
Okay?
6.
7.
5.2. All right. Awesome. If you're at a 7, feel good about yourself. If you're anywhere lower than a 7, understand that you've got some work to do. But here is the key, and please, if this is the one thing that you take with you, I'm good. We'll use Kent as an example. Your culture is not what you say it is. It's not what is on your mission statement. It's not in any of your handbooks. It's not, this drives me crazy. It's not your mission statement. It's not your core values. It's none of those things. We're all nodding. We all understand that, but we don't live it. And here's the example. Okay, if my son was best friends with your top employee, okay, and they're having dinner, and my son said, "So, how's work?" What comes out of that employee's mouth has nothing to do with anything that's written on your website, anything that's written on performance reviews. It's not that. Your culture is not what you say it is, it's what they say it is. Please take this into your heart and engrave it on a tablet, because human resources creates material like crazy. That is not a culture. And that's what we're going to talk about. In the book, believe me, you don't want a situation where more candor is shared in the hallways and in the rooms where fundamental ideas are being hashed out. This is moving us into how culture affects problem solving. So, what happens at the water cooler, what's said at the water cooler, may not be said anywhere else. And you want a culture that is open and free to share ideas. We're going to get there. All of us can't get past this. We have an emotional side of our brain, and we have an informational side of our brain. I'm not going to go through the fight or flight response too much, but there's nothing you can do about it. It happens instantaneously. So you have an emotional reaction and an informational reaction. This is my attempt to be a software guy. Let's look at an if-then statement. Okay? So if I'm in a meeting and I feel safe and I feel like I'm a trusted part of the team and I feel like I belong and I'm appreciated, then I'm going to share ideas without hesitation. Trust me, this if-then statement is a fact. If I feel like I belong, I'm going to share ideas without hesitation. The thing that I want you to realize is, what are they not sharing? Because they don't feel safe. And here's what happens. People choose one of 3 options, only 3 options, in an environment. So we'll use Kent's team again. So Kent's got a team of 6 people sitting around a conference room table. They're trying to solve a really, really, really big problem. There's one person in the room that just recently got promoted in that discussion, okay? Not everybody's appreciated the fact that this guy got promoted. Everybody in the table is going to do one of 3 things. They're either going to protect and defend themselves, meaning if that person challenges an idea, they're ready for the fight. And you're all much smarter than me, and a lot of smart people work for you. So you're going to see a lot of this. I'm going to defend my idea. My idea's right. That's option 1. Option 2 is they're going to distance themselves and they're going to tune out. We've all been in those meetings. We've been in those meetings where you just want to go, come on, say something. They won't. Why? Because they're protecting themselves. And the last one is people engage. They envision and they create. Now, obviously, that's what we want. In my guesstimation, 7 meetings out of 10, this doesn't happen. 7 meetings out of 10, you're trying to figure out, if you're even thinking about this, why somebody is protecting themselves and causing other people not to talk, why this person is distanced, and you're not getting here. In the book Culture Code, given that our sense of danger is so natural and automatic, organizations have to do some pretty special things to overcome that natural trigger. And they do. And I love what was said. You strengthen a team by creating a sense of belonging. Anybody can kick down a barn. It takes a special carpenter to build one. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been in places where the barn was kicked down. I worked for an organization where the president was frustrated by somebody, and you walked into their office and he goes, "Hello, is there anybody in there?" And 10 people saw him do it. What does that do to a culture? You all are building a barn every single day. It's never finished. Because you're going to hire somebody new, or you're going to promote somebody, or somebody's going to retire. Now, there are group dynamic cues that foster belonging. And I'm going to use belonging intentionally here. This doesn't mean kumbaya, everybody's going to have a group hug. That's not what it means. It means I'm glad to be here and I feel like I'm a part of something special. These are the cues, and you've been in meetings where you've seen these things happen. Number 1 is energy. There is a palpable sense of we're doing something cool in that meeting. Everybody is contributing, and there's an exchange of something wonderful happening. The second thing is individualization, and this is the hard one. When you look into Creativity Incorporated, they create, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute, they create groups from all different roles. So if somebody is in a different role, and I know I don't know this as much as you, do I feel like you're going to listen to me? If there's a sense of belonging, you will. You've heard us say, everybody says, well, no ideas are bad ideas. That's true only if the person feels individually appreciated and feels like he can contribute. If not, he's going to shut up, like we saw a few slides ago. And the third thing is future orientation. What that means is all the team members feel like, you know what, they're solving something really cool. And this became real to me when I was reading about Toy Story, because they went through multiple iterations of that script concept. Multiple things, and again, read the book, you're going to be blown away about things that they thought were like in the final production that came off, because they were all saying, we need to make this the best it can be. It's not about whose idea it was, it's about what we want it to be. That's future orientation. So let's talk a little bit about us, okay? What I do when I interview people, and again, I'm not a software guy, but when I interview candidates, I tell them, look, we're looking for 3 things, and they're of equal proportions every single time. I'm looking for culture, I'm looking for contribution, and I'm looking for aspiration. And here's how I describe it to them. So I've spent a long time, we're not a big company, I've spent a long time caring for employees, caring for who their families are and who their kids are, and building an organization that appreciates them as people. And I'm not going to bring somebody in that's going to hurt that. The second thing is, I'm hiring you for a particular role. So if you do that role 50% well, but I need one of my other guys to come behind you and kind of clean it up and fix it, that doesn't work for any of us. And the third thing is, I want you to be just as excited about the organization as you are about yourself as a person. That's the future orientation. Meaning, when I sign a new client that's really not in your purview, you're an Android developer and I signed an iOS client, you're just as excited about it as everybody else because you want to see the company grow. That's what I want. Now, let me give you a painful learning example. had a candidate, and we put that as a priority. This guy said, I'm really good at this, I'm really good at that, I'm really good at this. And we said, boy, do we really, really need that. Well, I kind of a gut feeling about this one, but we really need some help. It took less than 2 months for that person to knock down the Jenga thing and call 4 employees and say, why are they doing this? We did not make a good decision. What I'm telling you is, whatever you have, understand that culture should be just as important as, in my view, as contribution and aspiration. So I want somebody that's a catalyst for future momentum, cultural momentum. I want somebody that's productive, and I want somebody that's energized by the team, not just energized by themselves. This is going to be hard for you because ego is very prevalent in IT, and maybe that's good in your organization. We try very, very hard to be humble. So this is what we're looking for. Getting the team right is necessary to getting the ideas right. So let's talk about how Pixar cultivates ideas. They build what's called a brain trust. They grab a group of people from different disciplines. The people on the brain trust will come in and out. They agree to be part of the brain trust because they want that future orientation. So what happens, or how are they guided? The first thing that, if you're a part of the brain trust, the first thing you have to understand is you better not be too attached to your own ideas, which is really hard. Because if you're trying to solve a problem and somebody thinks that they know the best way to solve it, then they're going to go back into the defensive mode. So if you're going to be part of this brain trust, don't be too attached to your ideas, because your identity is not your idea. Your identity is how you help us as an organization move forward. Do not judge the value of your contribution on whether your idea is adopted. This is another one that you've probably seen millions and millions of times. Somebody leaves a meeting going, yes, they bought my idea, so therefore I feel better. Was it at the expense of the goal of the organization? Don't know. They bought my idea, so I feel good. Put all your attention on the problem. Keep your focus on whether the idea thread is advancing or stagnating. Years ago, I was in a meeting with, and like you, I work with very smart people. There are people that can change the tenor of meetings by the questions that they ask, by diverting subjects, and you almost don't realize that you started here and you ended up here. Those people are not focused on the problem, they're focused on what they want to do. And this is hard. If you're a part of a brain trust, here's the problem, that's all we're doing. And if we end up over here, ask the question, is this addressing the problem or is this something new? And you have to withhold quick judgment, which is also really hard. In my earlier time in creative services, I worked with a brilliant writer. This guy invariably knew more about the clients that we served than the clients did. But his gift, and I put this in quotes, was everything that you suggested to him, he would tell you 3 reasons why you either should be careful or shouldn't do it. And I loved him. He passed away years ago. I loved him. But what I wanted to say to him is, look, put that energy into solving the problem, not telling me what I should avoid. He couldn't withhold it. It was part of his DNA. As you wait to find a break in the banter in order to make your point, don't stop listening to what's going on. I would say, from a human dynamics standpoint, I think everybody in the world wrestles with this. We can't help figuring out what we're trying to say. Oh, I want to tell them this story. I want to tell them this story. In a way, your brain is off somewhere else, and you might have missed something really, really important. I loved the fact that you don't have to ask permission to take responsibility for quality and innovation. So what Pixar is basically saying is if you're part of a brain trust, or even if you're not, if you have an idea that's going to bring that story forward, if you have something that's going to take us to the next level, then I want to hear it. And even if we don't adopt it, thank you for sharing it. Thank you for bringing it forward. At the beginning of my career, I spent a lot of time in architecture. And we talked about this earlier. In our world, a balance between design and development is really important. Louis Sullivan is a famous architect in Chicago, and he coined the phrase form follows function. It's actually form ever follows function. Most architects will say form follows function. I look at this as there has to be a balance between design and development. So we'll use technology as an example. If you have an application that works really, really, really well and never breaks down, but it takes somebody 5 minutes to look at and figure out what to do in the screen next, I submit to you Ariba. Ugh. Know what I'm saying? Hate it. That's not balance. If you have something that's beautiful and easy to use, but really performs no function whatsoever, then it doesn't work. So when you're putting things together, design should always be guided by the outcome of the tactical solution. It should always be thought about and considered. Not in a position of priority. And early in my career in creative services, the designer just wants to make it beautiful. That's not true. The designer wants to make it easy. The designer wants to make it sticky. The designer wants to make it simple. The designer wants to help you find what you need faster, because you don't have time to mess around with it and try to figure it out. One quick story, maybe two, and then I'll get out of your way. Has anybody seen the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Okay, so the story behind Who Framed Roger Rabbit is that is the very, very first Disney motion picture that had animation and live action together. So Roger Rabbit is a cartoon character. Think of him like a frenetic Bugs Bunny. And Bob Hoskins was the guy that's interacting with Roger Rabbit. Now, I heard this story at Disney, never forgotten it. I heard the story 10 years ago. When they were filming for Roger Rabbit, obviously you film Bob Hoskins first, and then you hand off the film to the animators. So there was a scene where Roger Rabbit is bouncing from wall to wall, because he's a cartoon character and he's all upset. And Bob Hoskins stops him in the middle, puts him up against the wall, and delivers a line to him. So they record it, right? He turns, I don't know exactly what he says. His right shoulder hits a lamp in the middle of the room. And that lamp goes like this, right? And the light goes up, and the light goes down, and the light goes up, and the light goes down. So they go, cut, and they send it off to the animators. Never forget this, the way this guy from Disney talked about it. He said, so our animators had to animate a cartoon character with physical light coming up the body of that cartoon character. We'd never done that before. And he said, and he looked at all of us and he said, we could have blown that off and you never would have known. We could have not thought about how light would hit a cartoon character. You never would have noticed. But we spent a lot of time thinking about what that looks like. And so if you watch the film, you can see it go up Roger Rabbit's legs, and then a little bit less, and then a little bit less. The point was, Disney looks for quality that is not always seen. They will go beyond to identify what's going to help something. And they call this process bumping the lamp. So what they do is they set up innovation sessions. As an example, we went to the Wilderness Lodge when my son was 8. So what they do is they say, okay, we're going to do a 1-hour bump the lamp session on checking into the Wilderness Lodge. What happens in the first 15 minutes? And they call it bumping the lamp. So, all right, so the people get out of the car. Who greets them? What do they say? What happens at the check-in? What's handed to the kids? They go through all of those steps. And they do this on a regular basis. This is their model for innovation. And they've been doing it ever since Roger Rabbit. Every process gets looked at and they try to bump the lamp and stay innovative. Because you gotta find, develop, support good people, and they'll develop good ideas. If you've got a culture that feels future orientation with a sense of belonging, and they buy into what you're doing, they're gonna bring ideas to you. Peter Drucker, Culture Eats Strategy for Breakfast. What I think this means is it doesn't matter how much you put into the playbook, if you have a culture that is not going to either follow the playbook or is going to run counter to the playbook, it's not going to work. And at the same time, if you have limited strategy but you got a great culture, you'll solve problems. Before I close, Ted Lasso fans, for those of you that have not seen it, I promise you I'm not going to spoil it, but I am going to talk about something in there. So Ted Lasso was a coach of not a Premier League team, but a soccer team in England. And at the very end, an author, journalist, wants to write a book about what happened to the team. And it's a wonderful series. If you've not seen it, I could not recommend it more highly. So a draft of the book is handed to Ted. And he writes on it, it's called The Lasso Way. And he writes on it one small suggestion. I'd change the title. It's not about me. It never was. Two things. What you've heard today is not about me. It's about the people that work for you. It's about the people that work for me. It's about what they say. And my question to you is, what rocks are you leaving? What rocks do you see along the way for your journey that has given you your perception for today? And more importantly, what rocks are all of your employees leaving for the person that's going to show up a month from now? Thank you. Doug, thank you.
Okay, stress management for leaders. Is this ever you? Have you ever been here? You're an IT leader. I'm guessing you have. Laying awake at night, worried about something that's happening next, worried about something tomorrow, worried about a project that's going poorly. Has this ever been you? There's two types of insomnia. Onset insomnia, where you can't fall asleep. Maintenance insomnia, where you wake up in the middle of the night and then you can't get back to sleep. I have maintenance insomnia. I fall asleep instantly. It drives my wife insane. I wake up at 2 a.m., can't get back to sleep. Thinking about the project tomorrow. I'm thinking about the thing that's behind. Thinking about why I'm in trouble, why I'm failing, why I'm not doing well. By the way, this is me. I'm Chief Operating Officer at C-Spring. We're a data consulting company. I'm a keynote speaker, 25-year executive leader. I've spent over 15 years in the CIO seat, and then all the rest of that stuff. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about this. We're here to talk about you. Is this you? So, what's the agenda? First, I'm going to try to prove to you that there really is a problem. Then I'm going to offer 3 exercises that might help. The first one is called the worst case scenario. The second one is called the lookout. And the third one is called the Superman. Sound fun? All right, let's dive right in. The problem. You guys ever seen these memes? I love them. Expectations versus reality. What do you actually get? Expectations versus reality. How about this one? You go on vacation and there's what you're expecting, and then there's what the reality of your vacation is. How about this? First day of school. I don't know about you, but my snowmen always look like the one on the right. I could never make a good looking snowman. How about today? What's your expectation for today? Is that the plan on top? And then is the bottom what today is going to actually look like? I'm right, aren't I? So I decided to take a little play off of this and write some job descriptions based on expectations versus reality. What's the written job description versus the actual job description? So my daughter worked at Kroger, so I had to include this one, which is a cashier. Just Right Grocery is seeking a cashier to smile and greet customers, scan their items, collect payment. Right? That's the job description. What did my daughter actually do every day? Get yelled at by customers because there aren't enough lanes open. Get asked by customers why there aren't more employees on staff. Get asked by customers to process coupons that don't even apply to their order. Just take the money off. I have a coupon. I know that's not the thing I'm buying, but just take it off. Right? That's the reality. Okay, optometrist. I have a close friend who's an optometrist, so I had to pick on him. Acme Optometry seeks an optometrist who will heal the blind and help small children who were failing in school. That's what you sign up to be an optometrist for, right? Actual job description for an optometrist. 1 or 2. 3 or 4. Better or worse? All right, that was for my friend. Okay, student. Purdue University is seeking students who want to learn amazing things while having fun, party all night with friends, and receive daily Venmo payments from their parents so they can have a great lifestyle, right? What's the actual job description of a student? 7:30 classes, headaches, back-to-back classes on the other side of campus. Do you guys have those? Finals week. No Venmo because you're getting to see them in your classes, so your parents cut you off. And then, of course, nightmares. Did you guys have the nightmare where you show up to the final and then you realize that you hadn't attended the class the entire semester, and so you were going to have to wing it? I still have that nightmare, like 25 plus years later. Okay, so written job description for an IT leader. ABC company is seeking and you know where I'm going with this, so feel free to laugh out loud. Strategic thinker that will act with full autonomy to lead the company into a new digital age. IT leader that will sit at the executive table and drive revenue by utilizing the cutting edge of technology. Team player who will be supported by all their colleagues and trusted to protect the company from unnecessary operational costs and cybersecurity threats. Right? That's the written job description. That's what we sign up for as IT leaders. We're going to go in and we're going to make things happen. Right? Okay, what's the actual job description of an IT leader? Follow along with me. I see you all smiling. So you implement Agile because you're not getting stuff done fast enough, and by the time you write the thing to the specs, that's not what they wanted anyway. So you implement Agile and you iterate and you get stuff done faster and everything's going great, only to be told, no, really you just implemented Agile because you don't want to give out dates for when stuff's going to get done. You don't want to code to a spec. You don't really want to meet the requirements. And you're trying to save money on budget, so you don't want to have employee BAs. That's really why you implemented Agile, right? That's what you're told. So then, as an IT leader, you build a roadmap. You're told, we need a strategic roadmap. So you build a 3-year roadmap or a 5-year roadmap, and you work through it all, you get it all approved, and it's finally rolled out to the whole company, and 5 minutes after it's rolled out to the whole company, you're told, don't do any of that stuff. All business priorities have changed. Of course, you're a good IT leader, so you actually built it to the business priorities, not to just IT techie priorities. You actually said, what are we trying to accomplish strategically as a company? And you built this amazing roadmap, and then you're told, nope, everything changed. Last quarter earnings were down. We're going to go a completely different direction, and so you completely change everything. And then 6 months later, somebody in a board meeting dusts off the roadmap from 6 months ago and says, why aren't we right here where you said we would be 6 months ago? Sound familiar? Okay. You hold tabletop DR exercises, and you sit there as an IT leader, and you're talking through your team. Okay, what happens if this outage happens, this data corruption event, this cyber attack? And you're talking through it all. In the back of your mind as the IT leader, you're thinking, what if none of this is right at all? What if what happens is nothing like what we're experimenting with? And you know, the military, they built an Osama bin Laden recreation of his compound to practice in, right? But when I asked for budget just to do some basic DR exercises, but I need some extra servers over here or this or that, my budget's cut. So we had to just sit here and draw on a whiteboard. That's my entire budget for DR exercises, right? Plus I don't have Expedient as my backup data center, so I'm terrified, right? That's scary. That's scary stuff, because it never is. It never is anything like the tabletop exercise. Oh, and don't forget about do not disturb. You're the master of do not disturb as an IT leader because you need to get some sleep. But then you have 17 people on your favorites so they can break through, because you have to know if something is going down, it has gone down, or there's an issue. So not to mention all the ITSM tools like PagerDuty and stuff that's all allowed to break through your do not disturb. I mean, it's your job to be woken up at 2 a.m. and notified that something horrible is happening. That's the IT leader job, right? Oh, and then there is the 2 a.m. call where the thing actually happens. And you have 2 Zoom calls going at once. You've got the one call that's the war room, and you're trying to talk to your team about what they're finding, and you've got the other call that's the executive briefing Zoom call. And your job is, as the IT leader, is to keep them briefed on everything that's going on. And they're asking you, do you have a workaround in place yet? And then you ask your war room, and they say, we're trying to find root cause. What do you mean you have a workaround? I'm like, we don't have a root cause yet. So then you mute them, and then you go back to the executive team briefing, and you unmute, and you say, okay, we're still trying to get root cause. And they say, you haven't had root cause yet? It's been 17 minutes. How do you not have root cause yet? And then ultimately, somebody has to be held accountable when something bad happens, right? I mean, you're the CIO, you're the VP of IT, you're the leader. We got to tell the board that we did something about it. So, sorry, too bad, you're out. That's stressful. This book changed my life. It's called The Wolf in CIO's Clothing. It's a Machiavellian strategy for successful IT leadership. It's a Gartner consultant who wrote it. And I'm actually not a Machiavellian follower. I'm not a follower of Machiavelli. I fashion myself a servant leader. So I'm not saying this book is like everything that I agree with, but man, does it challenge your thinking. And sometimes it's really great to read books that kind of challenge your thinking, isn't it? And she tells a great story about how IT leaders, in her experience, tend to be data-driven folks, and that's part of how they end up in IT. And so one of their hallmarks is transparency and being willing to share data. And so she tells a story about how IT leaders will, when they're confronted with a problem, when somebody's kind of coming after them, their answer is always just respond with data. And she shares this story. How many times has it happened that you share all the data about a problem and then it works? I used to be terrible at this. A CFO would come and say, "Oh, you're just doing agile because you don't want to share how much work the IT team is really doing. So you make up these story points, Fibonacci, and all this garbage, so that it's all just a big mask and smokescreen, right?" And so what did I do? I said, "Oh, great! I'll just share my DevOps with you. You can go see my board. You can come to a sprint planning session. You can see it all," and thinking I'd be completely transparent. And she shares in this story, how often has that happened and a CFO goes, "Oh, fantastic, you shared everything with me and now I implicitly trust you to do your job. I'm never gonna talk to you again, I'm gonna leave you alone." She says it never happened. In her experience, she's never had an IT leader. What happens is they just take all that data and find some reason to say, "See, your velocity was way off like 4 months ago during this one sprint, and I don't remember you talking about that, so you must not be transparent," something like that. So ultimately, I think the IT leader job description could be summarized in this one picture. It's to sit there and be stressed out. It's to sit there and be worried, to wonder what's going to happen tomorrow. Am I going to be in trouble for this project going yellow or red? Is there going to be an outage? Is there going to be a breach? Whatever it is, this is kind of our job description, isn't it? Stress is the physical, mental, or emotional strain or tension. Worry is to torment oneself with or suffer from disturbing thoughts. Have you ever worried? Anxiety is distress or uneasiness of mind caused by fear or of danger or misfortune. And that leads us to fear. A distressing emotion aroused by impending danger, evil, pain, etc., whether the threat is real or imagined. The feeling or condition of being afraid. Okay, real quick, I do want to say, I'm not talking about grief and depression this morning. If you've suffered a loss of a loved one, if you are suffering from depression, that is a very real thing and you should seek help for that. I am not a licensed psychologist or a psychiatrist. So I'm talking today about just the stresses and worries of everyday life. So I just want to be clear about that. But in general, are people more or less anxious? I mean, study after study, I took out a bunch of slides for time, but I mean, since the iPhone came out, stress. Since Facebook came out, stress. Since Instagram, stress. Internet, stress. I mean, there's just so many charts from people about stress and anxiety. We are so much more stressed out and anxious than we used to be. These are people's greatest fears, according to a study. Anything look familiar on that list to you?
Number 4.
You're in public speaking. It's terrifying. All right, have I established there's a problem? Good? Everybody agrees there's a problem. Okay, let's try 3 exercises. The first one, the worst case scenario. Before I get into the worst case scenario, I want to ask you a question. What is your identity? Doug sort of asked that this morning. What is your identity? Who are you at your core? Is it this? Is it just your slide of like accomplishments? Is that who you are? Is it your LinkedIn profile? Does that define you? Are you your LinkedIn profile or your number of followers? What about your core values? These are my personal core values. If you've never written down your personal core, I mean, your work has core values. Every company has core values. Have you ever thought about what your core values are? You should think about that sometime and write them down. These are mine. But these are still not what defines me. These are how I go through life. These are how I engage with the world, is through my core values. You engage with the world through your core values, but they're not who you are. So I'm going to ask it again, what is your identity? And this time I'm going to ask a different question, just this basic question. Are you valuable? Having considerable monetary worth costing or bringing a high price. Having qualities worthy of respect, admiration, or esteem. Of considerable use, service, or importance. Are you any of those three things? I think every person in this room is all three of those things. At your very core, you are a valuable human being. You have inherent value. And if you have inherent value, then guess what? All the anxieties that get in the way should be put in check. What are those anxieties? Imposter syndrome and anxious thinking. Anxious thinking. Imposter syndrome, feeling that you're on the verge of being exposed as a fraud. It's very common in high-achieving individuals. Actually, CEOs' biggest fear, above death, they're more afraid that they're going to walk in and be told by the board of directors, we've figured out that you're a complete fraud and you don't know what you're doing, you're fired. That's a higher fear than death for CEOs. That was an Inc. magazine study that they did on imposter syndrome. Pretty amazing. What about anxious thinking? What do you worry about? My job, I could lose my job, it's not prestigious, I don't help people enough. There's lots of anxious thinking that kicks into our brains, isn't there? So how do we combat that? This exercise, the worst case scenario, and probably everybody's heard of this, but the idea is you just think through, if one of those terrible things happens, what's the worst case scenario? For me, my entire career was losing my job. I truly believed in my heart of hearts that if I ever lost my job, this would be me within 24 hours. I mean, if you asked me point blank, I wouldn't tell you that, but the way I behaved was as if I believed I would be on the street, my wife would abandon me, my kids would abandon me, my church friends would abandon me, everybody I knew would abandon me. I mean, I lived with that level of fear of losing my job. And then this past winter, I lost my job. Wow, that was super humbling, super terrifying. But guess what didn't happen? That's not a picture of me, thankfully. I did not end up on the street. There's a book that I read, and I feel bad that I can't quote the person or reference the person because I can't remember what book it was in. But they said they count the number of couches they could sleep on at any given time if the worst happens and they lose everything. What's your couch count? It's probably a lot higher than your natural instinct is when you think about like not being able to pay your bills. You probably know somebody would let you sleep on their couch if you lost your house or your livelihood. And you're probably not going to get there. So that's the worst case scenario. Takeaways from that exercise. Where do you struggle with imposter syndrome or anxious thinking? And take time today, ideally with someone you trust, and honestly work out the worst case scenario if this fear really comes true. You'd be surprised how encouraging it is to think through. It's not as bad as you think. It's really not. Okay, so we addressed the problem, or we defined the problem. We talked about the worst case scenario. Next exercise is called the overlook. Have you ever gone to one of these scenic overlooks and you see a mountain range or the ocean or Grand Canyon or something amazing, and it just puts things in perspective? You just realize, wow, there are some things in this life that are really important, and then there are some things in this life that probably aren't as important as I think they are. That is the goal of this exercise, the overlook. So to help us with that exercise, to give us that perspective, we're going to look at a study of the 15 main things that people think about and say when they're in their final moments of life. And that's gonna help us have that overlook, that perspective. So let's dive right in. 1 of 15. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. Will that be you? Are you somebody who can't turn off work? Can't stop working? I wish I had laughed things off more often. That's a good one. Do you hold grudges easily? Are you easily offended? When you're laying in your final moments, will you be that person that says, I'm so glad I held that grudge against that guy that fired me for 20 years and it ate away at me, and I'm so glad that I never let that go? No. You're gonna say, wow, I wish I had just laughed things off more often, just let stuff go, and I just wasn't so easily offended. How about I wish I enjoyed more of the foods I loved? Maybe that'll be you, I don't know. Everybody's different, but pretty much everybody falls into one of these 15 categories or has a few that they can really identify with. Maybe you're the person that never had the office birthday cake, and then you'll be the one saying, man, I could have had some more pieces of cake in my life. I don't know. I wish I hadn't wasted my time trying so hard for people that didn't matter. Oh, that's an arrow straight to my heart. I have spent so much time trying to please and make happy people that I should not have been even giving a second thought to. That's a tough one. I wish I had not been so attached to my phone. That's big. Whole book's written on this. At Your Best, Deep Work, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Phenomenal books, all talking about this very subject. We are attached to our phones. I wish I had taken more risks or lived more on the edge, a little on the edge. Maybe it's that business that needed to be started, or the person you needed to pursue a relationship with, whatever it is. Is that gonna be you? I wish I had stood up to the bullies, the meanies, the baddies, and the gossips. Wow. That's a fantastic one. If you've ever read any of Lencioni's books, that's a theme through all of his books. If you're a leader, get these people out of your organization. Take ownership of getting these people out of your organization. If you're not a leader or these are your peers, work through it with your team. Figure out how to manage this and don't be part of it. Mike talked about that with culture, right? Don't hire these people, and if you have them, get them out of your organization. And if you're one of the people that likes to hang with these people and talk the negative and the management, they don't know what they're doing, they're just buffoons, don't play it. You'll regret it. I wish I'd made a difference. That's a pretty general one. Wish I hadn't spent so much time worrying about things I couldn't control. It's kind of what this conversation's about, I think. Wish I had traveled more. Maybe you need to go see Yosemite. A lot of people have that regret later in their life, that they didn't travel enough. I wish I had pursued the career I really wanted. Hope nobody here is feeling like they're in like a dead-end job or miserable. If you are, do something about it. I wish I had taken better care of my health. Now you're thinking, wait a minute. Earlier, I wish I had eaten more of the foods I loved. Isn't this a contradiction? Actually, in the study, this is not about that, about foods. And this is about going to the doctor's appointment. They wish they had followed the doctor's advice when they found out that they needed to go back for a follow-up, that they had gone to their annual physical, that they had done their $49 heart scan, that they had taken care of their health in that way is what this is talking about. So is that going to be you? Are you going to be that person that's stubborn and won't go to the doctor ever? And then at the end of your life, you're going to say, wow, if I had just followed my doctor's advice or gone and done what I needed to do, I might be feeling better right now. I wish I had been more present. I see everybody looking at me. That's awesome. Huge. I'm huge on this. Be present. If you're in a meeting, you either should be in the meeting and therefore be present, or you shouldn't be in the meeting and so don't attend the meeting. But don't multitask. Multitasking is a myth. We've all read books on that. We know multitasking is a myth. I wish I had seen my own worth. That's deep. That kind of goes back to the last one about being valuable. That you are a valuable human being inherently. And so you have worth. So you don't have to worry about the externalities of this life. And lastly, I wish I had realized how much I already had. We have so much, don't we? And we tend to focus on what we don't have. If only I had this, if I only had that. Okay, so which one stood out to you? On the back table here, not for now, but for as you're leaving, on the corner of the table is a stack of papers. Just grab one on your way out. It's a survey, so you actually can go through each one of these 15 and you circle on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely am I to feel this way in my final moments of life? And then you just stack rank it on the far right. So you can see, you might have 3 10s, so then that's 3 number 1s, but you could just stack rank it. So you can grab one of these on your way out. So that's the overlook, getting perspective. Time check.
Doing well.
Okay. Takeaways. What is one real world issue causing you anxiety right now? And take at least 5 minutes today, alone or out loud with someone you trust, and apply the overlook to that issue. Put whatever it is today, like I've got a meeting at 1 o'clock today to talk to my boss because this project just went yellow and I have to explain myself, and you're freaked out about it. And I want you to just take 5 minutes before that meeting and apply the overlook and just say to yourself, okay, in the grand scheme of things, when all these final moments are said and done, does it really matter how this meeting goes at 1 o'clock about this yellow project? And then take the survey that I left on the table back there and then say to yourself, what are you going to change immediately because of your highest scoring items? Okay, we talked about the problem, we talked about the worst case scenario, we talked about the overlook. You guys want to do one more? Sure. Oh, that was enthusiastic. Wow. The Superman. Okay, I'm going to read you a fable. It's really short, I promise. It's not very long. Once there was a man who owned a donkey. The man made his living transporting goods from town to town. Goods carried on the donkey's back. He was a difficult master, never happy with the donkey's progress, despite how hard she worked. He would frequently overload, insult, and beat her when he was angry. He complained constantly about the donkey's failings. Despite the harsh treatment, the donkey was a magnificent creature. Her ears were long and pointed, her neck was straight, as was her back, the perfect architecture for carrying food, supplies, and anything else you would ever need. She was sure-footed, even in the mud. The donkey's eyes, mane, and tail were a luxuriant brown. She was loyal, hardworking, and tenacious, especially when the going got tough. She never complained. She was an excellent donkey. One day at the entrance to a town, the donkey stumbled over a rock on the road. The man took his stick and began to beat the donkey without mercy. Angry, he cursed her for the mistake and continued to beat her until she regained her balance. By now, a crowd had gathered. One of the men in the crowd called to the donkey's owner, "What's wrong with you? Why are you beating that poor animal? All she did was stumble on a rock." The owner, incensed, called back, "Mind your own business. This stupid animal made me look bad," he snarled. "Who will buy my goods after such an embarrassing entrance into town?" The man and the donkey disappeared into the marketplace. A year later, the man and the donkey returned to the town. The man was even angrier than last year. His curses could be heard by the townspeople long before he and the donkey could be seen. A large crowd was gathering at the village gates, straining to see what could be causing such a commotion. Finally, the man and the donkey came into view. The poor donkey had changed dramatically. The luster was gone from her mane and coat. Her eyes were dull and bloodshot. Her back was bowed and her gait listless. The man was beating her with a stick, denouncing her shortcomings. Well, some things hadn't changed. Again, someone in the crowd called to the man, "Why do you beat that poor animal?" "Can't you see," said the man, "the donkey is useless. Look at it, it's ugly and slow. Who will buy goods from a man with a donkey as ugly and useless as this one?" Like before, the man and the donkey disappeared into the marketplace. In the third year, the harsh master and the donkey appeared at the gate to the town. Things had gone from bad to worse. The donkey's sweet face had been turned into an angry scowl. She was mangy, emaciated, and covered in scars. Where the donkey had been calm and sure-footed before, she was now nervous and tentative on her feet. She attempted to bite and kick her master whenever he came into range. The man beat her with a longer stick, afraid to come close to the animal. "See," he called to anyone who would listen, "this is a dangerous animal. I must protect myself and all of you from her outbursts." The man and the angry donkey went into town to sell their wares. In the fourth year, the man appeared at the market. He was gray, disheveled, and shrunken. He limped along on feet bloodied from his walk. Behind him, he pulled a heavy cart. As in past, a crowd gathered to view the poor fellow. Someone seemed to recognize him from the previous visits. "Hey, aren't you the man with the donkey? Where is your animal? How come you aren't traveling with her?" The man dropped the heavy cart down, raising a cloud of dust from the road. "That useless donkey," he began. "She up and died. Stupid animal. She ruined me. Now I have to pull this heavy cart from town to town. It's killing me." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you beat your donkey," said a woman with disdain. Those gathered gave each other knowing looks. "Maybe you should mind your own business," said the man with a cry. "You don't know what I've been through." He picked up the heavy cart and pulled it into the marketplace with all his remaining strength. So the harsh master is clearly the villain in this story, and the beautiful, capable donkey is the victim. But this fable is actually about the two sides of the self. You are the beautiful, capable donkey carrying all of the wares. And the harsh master is your inner critic, telling you nothing is ever good enough and beating you no matter what you do. You stumbled on a rock, you messed up a project, you did this thing, you didn't follow through on that other thing that you forgot about. You're a loser, you're a failure, and that's what that inner critic is telling you all the time. And then, to make matters worse, this is even covered in the fable, that when people come alongside you, like the townspeople, and say, "No, it's okay, you're good," and they try to support you, your inner critic lashes out at them and says, "They're lying to you. They don't actually like you. They don't actually approve of what you're doing. They're not really your friend. They just want to sell you something." That is the victimhood that we can fall to with our own inner critic, and that's the fable of the harsh master. Self-respect, proper esteem or regard for the dignity of one's character. That's what this fable's about. I wish I had seen my own worth. That was number 14. Remember that? So here's the Superman. Studies have been done across the entire globe, all cultures, when people are down on themselves, when they're upset with themselves, when they have that inner critic, they do this with their body. They close themselves off and they come in like this. Doesn't matter what culture you're from, country, anything. Across the globe, we as human beings do this when we are down on ourselves. What do we do when we're proud of ourselves? This. We cheer, we open up our bodies. Scientific, studied. Every culture, nobody varies across the globe. Every culture does this. We open ourselves up, we as human beings do. And so then further studies have been done that show that when we force ourselves into these open positions, even when we are down on ourselves, it actually changes our brain chemistry. It rewires our brain, and we actually start to feel more self-confident and less critical of ourselves when we do this. Public speaking coaches have been teaching this for years. It's called the Superman. And they say, when you go to give a public presentation, you go in the bathroom or somewhere private, and you just stand in the Superman pose for 30 seconds or a minute. You guys would be amazed at how much self-confidence, it really is true. It absolutely is true. It looks hilarious, but it changes your brain chemistry. And you don't have to do Superman. You can do this, literally just stand out in the sun like this on a bad day when you're working from home and you walk out in your backyard and you just do this for a minute. You would be shocked at how much it does for you. So that's the Superman. So takeaways for the Superman: what is one area of your life where you struggle with self-regard? Pick one person to tell about this struggle. What are you going to change, do, or think differently now that you've identified this? And then lastly, go in a private room and practice the Superman for 30 seconds while thinking about that struggle. You will walk out of that bathroom a different person. It sounds crazy. All right, I'm almost done. One final takeaway. I truly care about each and every one of you in this room. You are valuable human beings. And so if you struggle with this, or if this is something that you're dealing with, I would love to hear your story. Hit me up. Let's go grab coffee. You might be thinking this can't be true. This guy can't be this touchy-feely. Yes, if you know me well, I really am this touchy-feely. I really would love to hear your story and meet you. I'm not selling anything. I'm not a professional coach. Jeff Dobson's in the back. He's a professional coach. He would love to help you with that. But I would just be meeting you for coffee. I'm just here to learn your story and hear about your struggle with this, because I've certainly struggled with it. We all have. I would love to help you with that. And I think I have some, this is all my footnotes. Doug can send out the slides, and then that's me. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ryan. Mike, thank you as well. I feel very privileged to know each one of you. Like Ryan, I'd love to meet with you if you'd like to have someone to talk about these issues. Tell your friends about this meeting if you liked what you saw. I'm excited about the November event, the election day, November 7th. 2 additionally great speakers will be involved. Thank you. I hope you have a great day today.